Hey guys, Spanners here. We had so much fun last week doing some off-the-wall and off-beat predictions that we thought we'd do it again. So this week, we're bringing you a fresh batch of Missed Apex panelists to give you their predictions for 2025. We're going to be joined by Matt Trumpets, Kristian Pedersen, and Brad Philpott. So after last week, which I think went down quite well, I've given the panel the brief again to not give me predictions like, oh, I think Ferrari are going to win the championship or Lewis Hamilton's going to definitely beat Leclerc at Ferrari in his first season, cementing his place as the greatest of all time, because this show isn't biased in that way. I want to hear more about the soul and the spirit of F1 or specific events that my panel think are going to happen. I'm joined, of course, by Matt Trumpets. Hello, Matt.
And what time is the race on?
There's no race.
Dang it.
No, not yet. There's only 6 weeks until testing, though.
Oh, good. I'm looking forward to testing for reasons I can't share with you right now, but it may prove comical.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad you shared that non-sharing thing. But we have got some exciting things coming up. We've got actually a top-line F1 guest coming up in a couple of weeks. And I'm going to sit down with Catman and we're going to review Alonso's career so far, which is weird, right? Because I said to him, you know, we'll do some historic kind of profiles of drivers from the past. And he was like, Alonso. I'm like, yeah, but Alonso is a current driver.
Which part of his career? The drivey part or the other part?
We're going to do all of it because Catman gets really deep into the history. But if we're going to do Rosberg as a olden days driver from the past, well, Alonso started before Rosberg. So yeah. He transcends time. We're also joined by someone who has transcended time for a long time. It's the ageless Kristian Pedersen. Hello, Kristian.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Spanners. I even got the chance to meet your wife tonight.
Yeah, no, she jumped on.
You're aware of that, right? You know.
What are you alluding to, Mr. Pedersen? The chaos has begun already. Hopefully there's no poetry, especially from the likes of Brad Philpott. Hello, Brad.
Good evening, team. I am so excited to share with you the predictions that I stole from my friends today. So I'm going to tell you what they think.
I was going to say the notes in your section are decidedly blank.
Yeah, well, I just didn't want you guys to steal my really cool predictions. And I think as kind of wacky or out there as they sound, there is a chance that some of them will happen. So I'm looking forward to sharing them with the team.
That sounds absolutely perfect. Let's get into it. Let's start with the wonderfully unmuted Kristian Pedersen. And Kristian, you have the floor. What's your first prediction for 2025?
And we are allowed to make predictions that are not necessarily on-track predictions, right? We can
100%, absolutely.
Cool. So I listened to last week's show, and you were a lot on the theme, on the topic. So I'm going to pick something a little bit more media-related, and I've been talking about this for quite some years, actually, and I've always thought of it as a really, really great idea. The fact of taking all the teams, getting them into a room, and then launch all the cars at the same time under one banner, this year's Formula One show. And then I got to read a little bit about it. It's going to happen on February 18 from the O2, which is a place in London, if I'm not wrong.
It is,
correct?
Yep.
Yeah, it is. And then I read that it's a guy called Brian Burke who's going to be, let's say, direct it, produce it, be the headmaster of the show. And Brian Burke is, for the Formula One people, is probably best known as the creative visionary, as they call him, who did the Las Vegas Grand Prix. And it all started way back when Liberty bought the Formula One, and they did, I think it was in Austin, the first time they did like an Americanized version of calling out the drivers, and you saw all these European drivers, like their eyes looking from one side to the other, and no one knew what was going on. And
this was at Austin, yeah.
Yeah, it was Austin, yeah, and just the entire timing of it all was just not meant for TV somehow. Probably not meant for live events either. Anyway, I love how Liberty has, let's say, commercialized the product Formula One. But when they do these events, they sort of forget the human side of it and only focus on the flow side of it. They only focus on the flames has to be the biggest flames. The graphics has to make a sound. And you have to use all the hosts from the F1 show, and they all have to be in glamour dresses. And Will Buxton is in the middle, and he puts on a little joke, and it's just not content. There is nothing in it. There is no vitamins. It's all like shiny floors.
So it's all ice cream, no broccoli.
Yeah, and I'm afraid that this year it's going to be the 75th anniversary for Formula One, and they're going to do this big launch. But already 4 days before, Williams are going to show off their car. Not the actual car, but they're going to do like a pre-thing with signs probably. So already there you have a car out. There will be talks about the Williams car before the launch, and all the teams will not bring their actual car. So again, it's just going to be a lot of form, and I think that is basically destroying the DNA of what Formula One is, which is patents, it's brains, it's engineers coming up with these innovative solutions, and then you put it all in this glamour, shiny floor show. I don't understand it. So my prediction is that is gonna suck balls.
You are being so European right now, and I can't believe that James Vowles and Williams are going to release information early before they're supposed to. What a complete shocker! That is fantastically on brand for the new look Williams under the stewardship of James Vowles. But you're saying it as a bad thing. When you were describing all that, I was thinking good, because what this can't be is 10 times the Alpine launch. So the Alpine launch this year with Bruno Famin and the livery that, even though they had so little to work with already, they somehow made it look even worse under the lighting. It was a lot of very long, boring speeches. It was interviews with the drivers who were just sat there in the most sterile environment, and it was horrific. And in my head, the F1 launch was just going to be 10 of those. Now, Kristian, just quickly remind me the name of the person.
The guy behind it, the creative person, his name is Brian Burke.
Brian Burke. So Maria says in our live chat, oh, good, there's a person that we can blame for all of this. So that's good that we've identified the name. But Matt, he's being way too European. Bring some American common sense to this. NASCAR has got the introductions to the races right, and it's better than what they did in Austin because the NASCAR drivers are into it. They've rehearsed like a handshake or a chest bump or something with the MC, or they throw T-shirts into the crowd and they're signing autographs and they're into it and they love it. Though the F1 drivers in Austin were not ready for what was happening, which is why it flopped.
The more it happens, the more the drivers will grow to adore it. And we have a real driver we can ask about appeals to ego. But I digress. I'm going to completely come at Kristian here and say, this is actually genius by Formula One. Because what you've done is for years, the cars would all have their own car launch. Everyone would go there. And then it would be last year's car, welded to the year before's car with the wrong tires on it, most of the aerodynamics missing, and a livery. And everyone would be angry. Now, if you're one of the people who can spend forever arguing about whether the line should go on the top of the side pod or on the down part of the side pod, well, you've got your event laid out for you in the O2 Arena. It's going to be super fantastic. You can argue about whether the liveries are good or bad for your favorite team, for your favorite driver, all the way up until preseason. And if you're not that person, well, you can just ignore it. So I thank you for putting it into a neat category so I know exactly what to do with it.
You know that feeling when you've been watching a Super Bowl or you've been watching like a Champions League final and it's 0-0. You watched Beyonce in the halftime show, you watched all the fireworks, but nothing really happened. And that is what is going to happen here because no one's going to show off their new cars. No one's really interested in putting in the mandate of content here from the team's perspective. Not yet at all. Because if someone told them you have to show your new car, your new livery, and the new car, then we would all be, I'm going to go there for the show, I'm going to go there for the fireworks, but I'm mostly going there for the Formula One bit. If it's just for the show and the musicians performing and stuff like that, fine. But they are launching this as a Formula One 2025 launch, which is not going to be.
So Spanners and I both went to the XL, which is a similar kind of exhibition-y
for Formula
place.
E. Yeah.
For Formula E. And they were the same cars that we saw the previous year. Well, actually, maybe they weren't. It might have actually been a new generation last year. But anyway, there were cars we'd seen before. It wasn't like we were seeing something brand new. And it was still cool because they'd made it an event and there was like a concert that we could watch music at. And it was like, it was fun to be there with a load of like-minded fans at a venue because indoors as well. It's quite cool that it's indoors, so it's not weather affected. So do you not just think this will be just a Formula One version of that? I appreciate there's no racing going on, but the stuff around the racing was really fun at Formula E.
Yeah, hopefully. I think it does need to have some pizzazz. It needs to have some Americanness. Sorry, Europe. But it does need to have some pyrotechnics and some fireworks. What it can't be is what like Aston Martin do it, and Alpine did it last year, where it's like this is a really corporate event and it's what you'd expect at their business headquarters. And you've got Lance Stroll saying we are really, Lawrence Stroll, sorry, we're super optimistic for this year and all that kind of thing. And it's just dead. And this year they're going to push out Andy Cowell. Andy Cowell, he's the new Aston boss, right?
Yeah.
Andy Cowell. So he's got a great reputation, but he's got to take his turn to say Lance Stroll. Compare him to Michael Schumacher would be an insult to Lance. He's the greatest driver on this or any other grid. He's got to take his turn saying all of that. It can't be that. It has to be the fireworks. It has to be, I don't know, Bruno Mars or whoever they've got lined up. It has to have, something. But while we're there, Matt, what do you think of this new appointment at Aston Martin? Positive?
Well, I believe he was already the CEO. So what you're looking at is a Zach Brown level restructuring of the team, only kind of in the opposite direction. It seems like he realized there was lots of overlap between the track crew and the and the headquarters crew, and he wanted to create more well-defined areas of responsibility and improve communication. And so his answer to that was putting Mike Crack in charge of the trackside crew entirely, making that his only brief to make sure that goes well. And he himself, because he doesn't go to all the races, would take over the headquarters side of thing and look after the engineers there.
What happened with Allison, and who was the Mercedes team boss at the beginning of 23, who got quietly promoted out of the team principal position?
I think that was Mike Elliott, if I remember correctly.
This smacks of that. I think Crack has been moved away from the limelight. He's essentially been sacked as team principal. Someone else has been put in that role, and I'm guessing that Kristian, at some point in the year he'll quietly move on to a different project.
I don't think it's we don't like Mike Crack thing. I think it's Andy Cowell has once said, "It makes me grumpy if there's an overlap of responsibility. It makes me grumpier still if there's a gap or lack of communication." He's a very things just has to be done by the people who's doing it, and they have to do only that. That's it. And I think that is the right approach. And I also think that is why Mercedes was so successful with their engines. He is a very big part of that.
Okay, we've actually got an Aston Martin prediction as well. So I'll do this. It's from a listener, Ed Bleach, patron Ed Bleach, who says, "I reckon Aston Martin will fight for the Constructors' Championship in 2026. These were 2025 predictions, by the way, as their restructuring to keep the race team separate is similar to when Zach Brown moved aside to focus on being CEO only." And some of the Discord are in dissent, saying it's not the same as the Elliott thing, I think. To me, Matt, that's the initial impression that I got from the outside. And I don't think we actually heard from Mike Crack. I don't think we heard from him going, "Oh, I'm delighted with my new role away from the spotlight and not going to the races."
Yeah, I think it's going to be something proof pudding. We'll see what actually happens when we get to preseason testing and the season itself, whether he's being quietly shuffled out of the way or whether this is a genuine restructuring and he's been given a different set of responsibilities. It's a bad time to figure out what's going on because, people are slow to answer their emails.
Yeah, Mike Stoner in the chat saying, "Ed is obviously very, very drunk." It could go either way, Brad, I think, with Aston. I mean, personally, I think it's too much to ask to suddenly leap to the top. But there is that glimmer of hope with Newey and new regs.
it's Newey, it's Cowell being more hands. It's Cowell being more hands-on. And the thing that I wanted to say was that they are going to be using their brand new wind tunnel for the 26 car. And that's the reason you really can't overlook their chances going that direction.
Don't forget Martin Whitmarsh was actually in the picture here as well, and we didn't even see him at the races. He was there, but we didn't see him. He was very silent. And now Andy Cowell has Martin Whitmarsh's job all of a sudden, and Mike Craig is trackside engineering. I think they know what they're doing.
Oh, I think it'll still be a big bet. All right, let's go to our next prediction then. Who should we go to? Brad, thanks for joining us on the panel, Brad. You've been making some great YouTube videos. I saw your karting video of you racing in the very, very cold at Milton Keynes Daytona. You thought I was being sarcastic. That is one of the best karting videos I've ever watched on YouTube.
Oh, thanks, Spanners. Yeah, if anyone wants to watch that, I'm sure the link's in the show notes. Basically, I think it's the camera angle that really helps. I'm getting better at video production, but also having a very wide angle, super clear onboard that's stabilized just enough, but not too much.
Yeah, the onboard
gives you a
was
real
amazing.
sense of the speed.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I felt like I was racing there with you. So definitely click on that. It's a 23-minute little adventure of your path through the heats. And was it the Race of Champions?
Yeah, the Daytona Race of Champions. If you just search Brad Philpott on YouTube, you'll find it. Thanks, Banners. So yeah, let's go to one of my predictions. And I know how these things work on Missed Apex. I've got 3 predictions. There's no way we're all getting through all 3 of these. I've watched these shows before. So I'm going to go for one of my good ones. I'm not going to save the good ones for the end because I just won't get to them. And I'm going to take one that I stole from one of my friends at dinner today, which is that this year, a 12th team will be accepted onto the grid. So we know we've got Cadillac coming, and I think that is going to not open the floodgates, but it's going to make it easier and more palatable for the teams to accept the 12th entry as well. And there's, I don't know, maybe you guys can suggest who these might be, but I think there's a few teams that have been lurking and desperate to get on the grid.
Oh, okay. I know Matt's going to have things to say about that. My immediate counter to this is you might get another entity coming into Formula One, such as Toyota. So there's been in the news today that Toyota is really trying to ramp up its entry now. So that will be the end of Haas. So that's not going to be a 12th team. They're going to partner with Haas and then slowly basically take over. So I think there's a couple of teams that will still be for sale. So Alpine, it's up in the air who Alpine will be. There'll be another entity coming in for Alpine led by Briatore. So already there, you've seen that the franchise has been sold, if you like. And then Stake Sauber, which should have been taken over by Audi. I don't know how optimistic anyone still is about the Audi effort ever happening, but that might well leave another team up for sale. So I feel like in the bottom of the, sort of from the bottom of the midfield onwards, you've got Stake, you've got Haas, and you've got Alpine that will probably rotate for the next couple of years. And even Cadillac, if it doesn't work out, you've got those entities. I think Williams will probably survive in its form because of the heritage. But you've basically going to have 4 essentially customer teams that can sit there as operating F1 teams that someone can come in for a while, slap their name on it, say we've got an F1 team until it doesn't suit them anymore. And so I think you'll get a lot more movement, but whether or not that results in a 12th team, Brad, I'm not sure.
Yeah, but I think that we're going to have an actual additional 12 teams. So I accept everything you said about those teams. I think that's all valid. But I think Hyundai are going to want their own version. And they've been a serious player in motorsport around the world recently. So I'm going for it. That's my prediction. Hyundai entrant for sometime in the next few years, announced in 2025.
Would that have anything to do with the high-tech situation, or is that just independent?
So, so high tech. Just let me get this straight in my mind. Is that Oliver Oakes' team?
Yeah. Oliver Oakes is the part owner of High Tech, and High Tech runs a lot of like lower class teams and quite well and they bid at the same time as Cadillac or Andretti, and they were just wiped off the table, and then they sued FIA, and that case is they are fixing that case, and that is going to end with the FIA paying a lot of money to High Tech. No one knows how many, and no one's going to tell us, But that could possibly be reversed to, well, come on in, guys, instead of FIA paying a lot of money, maybe under another name.
The only problem with the high-tech entrant as a new entrant is surely if they do get in, it's much more likely that with Oliver Oakes being the team principal of Alpine, that it will just be that they become high-tech instead of Alpine.
Exactly. But there is one thing that we're not talking about. The 26 regulations was supposed to be electric engines on the front wheels. That was dropped because Audi was accepted as a team. Audi has a lot of knowledge about this from the VEC. So all the other teams were like, no, we can't have Audi coming in and have electric motors knowledge, blah, blah, blah. If that is how they operate, right? How would they ever pick one twelfth of their annual money and give it to a team they don't know? I can't see that happening. The teams are too greedy. No.
Matt's probably got a lot more insight than us.
Well, I would first of all say, I think instead of Hyundai, you'd see them come in as Genesis, as a chassis or simulation.
Phil Collins? Are you saying Phil Collins?
Genesis is their Lexus.
Ah,
yeah, I can feel it in the air.
brand.
I can feel it.
Yeah, me too.
So I think if they came in, they'd come in that way. I don't think they'd necessarily want to manufacture an engine, but they've also made a big investment into WEC. So that would surprise me a bit. There could be a 12th, but the most likely 12th would have been high tech, and it seems much more likely they're just going to wind up gradually absorbing Alpine to help Renault out. And so I would like that. I think it would be good for the sport. But right now, I'm not sure who I would see coming into that 12th spot because the two legitimate bids were the Cadillac bid and the high-tech bid. So if there's a consortium out there of oligarchs and manufacturers, well, maybe we could see something originate, but I'm not sure I see it coming this year.
All right, Matt, you or me? Who's going next? Put them up. All right, you go for it.
All right. Okay.
2025 prediction. And do you know what? Because I can tell that you're struggling, to read and you're having to put your face closer and further away. I can relate to that, age 44. Yeah. So what I'll say is Matt's prediction coming up after this. Stuart gave me a quick prediction, which was very nice. He said that I reckon that Missed Apex will be the #1 most downloaded podcast in the world in 2025, which is very kind. That's not the market that we're in. There's obviously much, much bigger podcasts out there. I'm on one of them. I'm on The Ringer, F1, with Meg Schuster as well. But we have created, I think, what is a wonderful community of listeners and viewers, not only in our Patreon Discord, but on our social medias and just the back and forths we have over email as well. We don't need to be the biggest podcast in the world. We're super happy with our place, but we do need kind of a turnover because people get fed up of podcasts and come in and out. So if you could tell your friends, hey, I listen to Missed Apex podcast during the winter and they have some content going through, well, other, I'm not going to say lazier podcasts, but lazier podcasts pack up for the winter. They're still there. Go and check them out. We'd really appreciate that. Just fire a link out if you've got 2 followers. That kind of word of mouth really, really helps. And to be honest, we're not doing too bad. We've just hit 10 million audio downloads. So just on the audio side, without YouTube, we have now reached a historic 10 million downloads, which I thought was just absolutely fantastic. I know it's an arbitrary number, but to hit 10 million, 7 figures, was incredible. But we are getting about 2 million downloads a year at the moment, and then half again on YouTube. And I think our biggest total audience this year was for the Belgian Grand Prix, and it was around 44,000, which means we can no longer fill Villa Park, the home of Aston Villa in Birmingham. The Missed Apex, we're too big for that. So we are now moving to Sunderland, the stadium of light. If you all want to turn up and watch a recording live, we're going to have to go to Sunderland now. So thank you to everybody who's tuned in. And thank you as well to FEEDSPOT. So podcast.feedspot.com. Our friends there, they do a bunch of podcast lists. So if you want the top science podcasts, they recommend the top 25. And in the Formula One list, they put us 3rd, which was it was just really, really nice to be put up there by, a well-known chart. They had Beyond the Grid up at number 1. Can't really argue with that. The Race Podcast at number 2, which is fine if you want a more journalistic angle to things. If you want people who care about facts, I guess. And then that's us, number 3. Missed Apex F1 podcast. So if you want to check out feedspot.com, we'll put the link in the show notes below. And hopefully that's given Matt enough time to come up with his F1 prediction for 2025.
And your problem there is, of course, I just have way too many. But of the bad things, because last time I think I did a good thing. I talked about loss in winning a race, which of course is going to happen. But this time, I want to talk about the sad things. I think we're going to say goodbye to some storied races for good. And specifically, I'm predicting Mexico. And I did pick that one because I knew we would have some Perez discussion about it.
Brad shrugging.
And I think we might have seen the last of Imola for a while.
And I'm being told that 10 million has 8 figures. But look, I'm not used to these kind of numbers. Yes, it was nice to hit 8 figures. Brad, you were shrugging with Mexico. It's a great venue with dedicated fans with an amazing atmosphere.
Okay, maybe. I think it's a bit rubbish. I think the track just isn't great. I think the final sector is a bit too fiddly. I think with Perez gone, and until you mentioned Perez, I'd actually forgotten about him because he's, he won't just be this constant disappointment in our viewing weekend. So yeah, I already get loads of hate from Perez fans, so it doesn't make any difference. So I just don't really care. Like the Mexican Grand Prix is one that I just don't mind if it goes. It's nice that, the Mexican population like motorsport and Formula One, but maybe if they get a better driver on the grid at some point, they will get the race back.
I think it's a great place to watch the race. I think it's a great place to go watch Formula One. But just as Brad, it's kind of boring on TV, and this is probably not going to be too popular, but when you drive in those heights, the way it sort of outbalances a lot of stuff that we can't see with our eyes or don't understand. I'm thinking about the air being thinner. There's just a lot going on there that just doesn't make sense all of a sudden, and it's kind of difficult to translate into entertainment.
Yeah, it is a shame. It's almost like if you transported that circuit to ground level, and put it in the Silverstone airfield, the layout could work at a different atmosphere, and it could work if they didn't have that stadium section, just completely slow down all the cars and space them out down the back straight. And it's weird because, Formula E raced there this weekend. You can just have any layout you want. So Formula E goes in the stadium, and then it does 3 turns, and then goes back out around the outside of the stadium. So for Formula E, that meant that actually people could do a lunge into that first left-hander, and it was a pretty good race. So like for Formula E, Brad, I mean, the track was great for Formula E.
Yeah, it's just such a different formula, isn't it? And they're just going so much slower. So I agree. I enjoyed the Formula E race, but I think that was more about actually the new attack mode. If you want to hear more about that, check out the Missed Apex Formula E podcast that we recorded yesterday, which was really good. But yeah, I just don't think the venue works very well for Formula One personally, and the altitude plays into it. And yeah, I just never really quite know where they are on the track. It's just a bit meh. So yeah, no problem from me.
Okay, so look, Mexico does have a rich motorsport fan base. So I would love to hear from our Mexican listeners who were cheering on Sergio Perez. Has the interest in Formula One dropped for you? And like, no judgment if you say, yeah, to me, if I don't have someone from my country, from my region, it's less relatable. I don't think there's any real shame in that. The Germans have come in and out when supporting drivers. I think if Verstappen was to do a snap retirement tomorrow, you'd lose a huge chunk of the Dutch audience. And, even like the Spanish, they're really focusing on their drivers. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of patriotism in sport, in my opinion. And certainly British interest in F1 dipped in and out as well, like in the early 2000s. And then it really sparked again with Lewis Hamilton, who brought a whole audience in with him, which will also suffer when he leaves. So I would love to hear from the Mexicans. Are you still interested in having a Mexican Grand Prix without Sergio Perez there? Imola was the other one you mentioned, I think, Matt.
Yeah, their deal is up. And if you look at what's happening with Spa going on rotation, I find it hard to justify 2 Grand Prix in Italy that close to each other, especially because you have Audi coming on board. Audi will very much want a German track for their team. But I think the surprise new addition will be an African track. I just don't know if it's going to be Kyalami or the one they're talking about in Somalia.
Have we complained about Spa yet? So,
maybe. I mean, the water wasn't, the sauna wasn't hot enough. The water seemed tepid. It wasn't great.
So actually, Matt, I meant Spa-Francorchamps, the racetrack in Belgium. So that was presented as a good news story by Formula One, and they posted all the headlines going, "Great news! Spa has signed this new contract for 26, 27, 29." And you go, whoa, wait a minute. So this was actually them announcing that one of the stalwarts of the F1 calendar, one of the most popular tracks, one of the best racetracks in the world, is now going to be only rotated. And I don't know the business reasons behind it. I don't know whether they can make more money from another track, whether they're squeezing European tracks so that they're rotating so they can have other street tracks that are more valuable, or maybe tracks in the Middle East that will pay more money. I don't know the ultimate reasoning, but I really did feel like Charlton Heston at the end of Planet of the Apes. You know, I'm on my knees, I'm looking at this statue of Liberty Media tearing down these historic F1 tracks to rotational races and going, you know, you fools, you finally, you did it. You blew it up.
Well, I don't think you will, with 22 races is probably going to be the maximum on the calendar, I think. So we can't have all the tracks in the world on the calendar each year. And I think Spa is going to be one of the tracks that if it's not there every year, we can go back every second year, every third year. And it's going to be even a bigger event when we go back in, let's say, every second or every third year. And the same with tracks like Imola. But when you look at tracks like Monaco, if they are on the track every year, then you can't really build that narrative, can you? Because then it's just about money all of a sudden. So you have to pick either of the sides. You have to go, are we going to do the best race tracks and just like swap them, or are we going to do all the money tracks?
Oh my God.
Right now, it feels a bit like the money.
Kristian, why did you even have to bring up Monaco? I wasn't even thinking about it in that terms. Spa is being rotated, and Monaco is going to be on there every single year. Good.
Yeah, but where do all the drivers live? Where do they go have their cafe latte? In Monaco. So it's all about the money.
Well, that's angried my blood, so I think it is time to move on. And let's make sure that we get our panel's predictions in here. In fact, I've got a really good listener one here from Marcio. But first, let's go with you, Kristian. Kristian, what's your next prediction for 2025?
Well, this is going to be, it's not a long one. I'm going to make it as brief as I can. But remember start of the year where we had this sexting scandal with Christian Horner, and suddenly it wasn't there anymore. And Helmut Marko wanted to leave. And well, let's just forget about that. How about Daniel Ricciardo? Well, anyway, who was he?
Does this end in a poem?
Yeah, it does, actually.
I've changed my mind. It's time.
How did you know, Matt? It does end in a poem.
I've changed
my
mind.
In the poem you were hoping for.
It's time for Brad's prediction. No, go on.
No, let's go for this. Well, anyway, if you don't know the story about Red Bull, I'm just going to tell it to you like in 4 sentences. Like in the 80s, this rich businessman, Dietrich Mateschitz, was in Thailand. He bought a Red Bull. He had jet lag. It cured his jet lag. And he was like, yes, sir. He called the guy making the Red Bull. They made a deal. $500,000 each, and they had a company.
Wow.
Then to this year, the Thai family is behind Horner. The Austrian family, we lost Dietrich Mateschitz some years ago, so the Austrian family is now the Helmut Marko side. And it was these two sides of the company fighting things out, which ended in the sexting scandal and all that sort of stuff. That is the sort of smoke that just doesn't go away. That is not like a small fire in the corner. You just, don't look the other way.
Yeah, they did just enough, didn't they? They did just enough to let it simmer down and out of the way. But the whole time, every single time Horner's been interviewed, that isn't the Horner from 2021 or even previous seasons. he is under a cloud. He can tell that every time he's being interviewed, every time he's speaking, it's still in the context of what went on at the beginning of the year.
Exactly. And since then, Christian Horner started Red Bull, or was hired to do Red Bull with Adrian Newey and Jonathan Wheatley. They were like the trio that built up the company. Since then, Adrian Newey left. Jonathan Wheatley is gone. He's gone to Audi. Will Courtenay is head of strategy. He's gone to McLaren. A guy called Vin, vehicle performance manager, gone to Alpine. Steve Winstanley, chief designer, is gone to Williams. Michael Broadhurst, principal aerodynamicist, is gone to Alpine. Lee Stevenson, and we can go on like that. And we have Daniel Ricciardo and we have Sergio Perez. If we ask ourselves, how many of these big names have we seen go to Red Bull? None of them. And when we talk to Christian Horner about this, he's like, yeah, well, you know, it's 1,000 people, 1,500 people, and you have people leaving and you have people coming. No, that is not the full picture here. We don't have any of the big people, the right people, the key people going to Red Bull. And that is going to cost Red Bull in some way. I'm not sure if the Austrian and the Tire family are ready to pay that price. So that is going to end in something catastrophic for the Red Bull team, I think. And my prediction is it's going to end with Max Verstappen going to, yeah, I'm going to say it. He's going to the Stroll family next year. And that is gonna make, they're probably not going to fire Alonso. So they have to fire Lance. And that is why I've written a poem for Lance.
Oh, God. Are you joking?
No, here it is.
Oh, God.
14th in the standings in 24. Dad is happy, need no more. Racing fast, do a lot of travel. Dad, look me, I'm in the gravel. Building a new structure, a working space. Wind tunnel, Newey, a parking place. But how do we get there? Do we go on a hike? We empty Lance's car from gravel, build all the roads we like. Ta-da!
That could have been worse.
Yeah, it could. I have another one for later. It's
no
much
liquid
worse.
is involved, so yes.
Quit while you're ahead. Brad?
I just want to say I fully support Christian's prediction. I think this is a great one. So, yep. Good. Well done, K-Fed.
I missed what the prediction was. I was too busy talking to the lawyers.
He said Red Bull is going to implode because
right.
all the good people are going, and even Max is going to go, and Red Bull are going to be one of the worst teams, something like that.
Well, it might be slower than you think. And I think this happened in the Mercedes era where you just assumed, that they'll turn up in 2022 when the new regulations finally started. And of course, Mercedes will be all over it. But that's just not how it works in Formula One. It changes with regulation sets. It's these new regulations in 26 could come into the window of just another team quite randomly. But also now with all the teams so close, if someone gets that innovation that just pokes their head above the rest of the teams, you could have a dominant car still in 2025. As optimistic as I am that it's going to be really close, there's no guarantee, Matt, that Red Bull are going to turn up and be fighting in the top 3, top 4. I mean, they've often been the out-and-out third fastest car at races already in 2024. It could go a little backwards in 2025.
Yeah, the unknown variable here is effort spent on 25 car versus effort spent on 26 car. But the joker in that deck is really the 26 is much more likely to be about who's got the best engine in the back of their car than it is about who's designed the best rest of the car.
All right. Okay. I think we've got away with that. I think we're all right. Let's see. It can't possibly get worse. Brad, what's your next 2025 prediction and who was it stolen from?
This one was stolen from my fiance. She said this I went downstairs just before I came on the podcast and said, what is your prediction for this year? Can't be about results. And she said, Max and Liam will have a physical altercation. So
That's
this
not
is
crazy.
quite
Yeah.
No, exactly. I told you these weren't crazy. It's unlikely, maybe, but not crazy. So we know Max's character. He's already had at least a physical one altercation with a driver, Ocon at Brazil a few years ago. Nearly came to blows with George Russell not too long ago. Baku, I think it was last year, or was it the year before even?
Oh yeah, that was
obviously
handbags though. That one.
and has threatened to do to put drivers on their heads, etc., etc. We know he's a hothead. And Liam Lawson is also a little bit of a hothead.
Definitely.
We've seen this with his first races, the kind of war of words with Alonso. I'm completely here for this. So this is the drama that I watch Formula One for. And I think if Lawson does get on top of some kind of pace and is at least in the same parts of the track as Max, and there's a chance he's good enough that could happen, then I think he won't be willing to be this kind of docile number 2 driver. I think he will be wanting to stamp some kind of authority or at least stake a claim, because especially if, as some of you guys have intimated, Max might not be there for the long term, maybe Liam could be the lead driver in a year or 2 years or whatever. So I think there's a chance that in the pit lane after a race, they will come to blows. That's my prediction.
I mean, it's too early, isn't it, with Lawson to tell, what is his potential. But obviously Red Bull have promoted him on that potential. And he's said in interviews in the off season, I'm just going to copy Max's homework. So he said, I'll have access to all the data. So I'll just see what Max does and try and copy that, which is, that is possible. You can look at telemetry. I've tried to copy, your telemetry and Danny's telemetry in our iRacing series, and you can definitely make improvements. So could Lawson look at that and go, well, I'll just make the inputs that Max makes?
Potentially. I think there's a big difference between saying that about a driver who isn't regarded as one of the very best and saying it about a multiple world champion like Max Verstappen. I think it's accepted that what Max is doing is probably basically as good as the car can do. And so if you can make it do that same thing, it seems, provided the cars are the same and the setups are the same, there's no reason why the car shouldn't be able to do the same thing in your hands if you're, a top level Formula One driver. And if Lawson believes he is, and I think he's got a lot of self-belief and he's got the fire, then maybe that could work, especially as a starting point. When you're a relatively new driver, you don't have the same experience as Max. So it makes sense to try and copy his homework, as you say. Now, the only downside here is when other drivers have attempted to do this before, they found the car is undrivable in the state that Max needs it to be. So they talk about this knife edge. I think Alex Albon spoke about it a couple of years ago, and that he just couldn't drive the car in the same state as Max did. And then you also had Perez more recently being encouraged to go his own way with setup instead of trying to copy Max, because he couldn't make the car do the same thing.
And he had a different car. He didn't have the asymmetric braking though. So
it's yet to be seen how this plays out. Yeah. But my prediction is based on Lawson doing a good job and at least becoming some kind of threat to Max. I don't think Max will respond well to that. I think Lawson will feed off of that. And that's when my situation might happen.
See, Lawson, he doesn't seem like he's not a nicey guy. I don't think so. And so this could feed into what Kristian's saying. So let's say that Verstappen has found himself in the wrong camp. I am firmly a believer that, as Matt puts it, teams will put their thumb on the scale for a driver. And I think it's happened at Ferrari. So Matt's suggestion or possibility was, do Ferrari want to not look stupid with their £450 million signing? Sorry, Charles, a little bit of a thumb on the scale. Ferrari have definitely done that in the past. And I personally think that is what you should do. And I think most of the teams except Mercedes probably do that to some extent. So Lewis Hamilton, in his early career in 2007, he ran higher qualifying fuel specifically because Ron Dennis wanted to keep Hamilton and Alonso apart on the grid. So these things are happening. They're real. It's not a mad conspiracy theory. If Kristian's right and Verstappen's on the slightly wrong side of the political battle, they could be looking at Lawson and going, well, you're the guy for the future. If Lawson was to somehow start getting these results against Verstappen, if you wanted to get Verstappen out to make his own decision, by the middle of 2025, Verstappen would probably, do a Vettel, like Vettel did when Ricciardo came in. Phone in the rest of the season, go and start your career again at Aston Martin or wherever he wants to go to. But could that lead to a physical altercation? I think if you wanted to pick two drivers on the grid going head to head and go, which ones would end up in a fist fight? I don't know, Kristian. I think you could pick worse candidates than those two.
I think physical does the cars count as physical, or are we only outside the cars?
Brad?
Well, my point was for outside the cars, but absolutely. I thought it was maybe almost too obvious to go for a car-to-car contact, because I think that's more likely to happen.
He's quite aggressive, Lawson, and I think he's really, really, really hungry. I think he's been lurking in the background for quite some time now, and he knows Verstappen, and he knows the team more or less, and he's going to go for just no BS kind of solution, I think. So I'm on Brad's side here.
And don't forget, Lawson is a Marco favorite, but I think if we're predicting who Max is most likely to come to blows with, which it seems like this is turned into, which
Russell.
is delightful for me. I'm a boxing fan. I think George Russell is number one. I totally see Russell and Max having a collision and the two of them yelling at each other, and maybe some helmets get smacked along the way.
Well, did I do my prediction about drivers not letting Max get away with not letting them push him around last week? I don't think did I not do that? Well, if I didn't, I'll make it quick anyway. Which is, I think that perhaps led by George Russell, because they all seem to be quite a union now. The drivers, do they get together and say, "Look what happened with Piastri in Abu Dhabi? Piastri didn't jump out of the way. It was Piastri, wasn't it, on lap 1? Verstappen hit him, got a penalty, and you go, we can all do that. We can all just let Max hit us. He'll get a penalty." And then that will over time become not a tactic that you could use. And if people start doing that, then the chances of Verstappen being in an altercation, I suppose, increase. So I've sneaked in a second one there. All right, why don't we go to Marcio's 2025 prediction, which is, I reckon Bortoleto will have a 2001 Alonso Minardi season, and that might make the driver market going forward very interesting, because he won F3 and F2 both in his rookie seasons. Someone will have to remind me about Alonso's rookie season, because that was the dark years of my Formula One, and I was too young anyway. But Kristian, you were around.
I was around, yeah. He was in the Minardi, but and he was doing things in the Minardi that probably weren't possible, but I remember more people talking about Alonso than him doing great things on track, actually.
Standard Alonso. I think Alonso's really, really good, but this is standard Alonso making something look amazing, but maybe it wasn't actually that amazing. I think that Minardi was quite decent for Minardi's, and his teammate was Alex Young, who isn't heralded as one of F1's greats. So Alonso destroyed Alex Young. I think that's right. But he at least showed well enough to become a test driver for Renault/Benetton, or whatever it was at the time, the next year, and then obviously got his world championship chances afterwards. But yeah, he just showed strongly in a poor car.
And just to add, it's his style to go, well, if this car can't beat anyone else, I'm going to do everything to just beat my teammate, so the living crap out of him.
Oh, man.
That is the Alonso style, right?
Yeah, even with Raikkonen, he threw Raikkonen under the bus. There was an interview at Spa, and it was on the grid. How do you feel you're going to do today? He goes, well, I'm doing really well. I qualified great. Look at the other teams. They're all together. My teammates back there. So that shows you how good I am. I'm like, wow. Cheers, man. Matt.
Well, it is an impressive commitment from Alonso to do that. But I'm intrigued by that, but also because we do have so many rookies on the grid. And any one of them could just absolutely, by accident, show up their teammate.
Not doing.
Is he a rookie now?
No.
Has he done enough races?
I think Brad's responding to the stories.
I was just saying that I think the one of the rookies doing's the least likely to show up his teammate. I think Gasly is in mega form. And I
would agree with you, because I don't think they will give him any kind of the same car that Gasly has.
I just think even if he has an identical car, he's been massively undermined by the team already. And every question he gets asked in the media, every single media session he does, will have the undertone of, so are you getting dropped in the next few races? And I just think that is a terrible environment to try and have your first few races in your F1 career. Plus, Gasly is going to be just on it. So yeah, sorry, I was just interrupting you to say that of the rookies, I think we might be underwhelmed by Doohan, and I don't think he's going to get a fair shake of it. But Bortoleto was the driver in question, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. No, you bring this up, and I suppose, wander down this side branch briefly, but I agree with you because I think that Colapinto, who has now been signed, brings a lot more eyeballs. And Alpine and Briatore have made no secret of them being willing to favor one driver over the other. And the easiest way to make this look as least bad as possible is to just not give Doohan the tools he needs to actually be competitive. So, yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
There is no way of telling what is going on in Flavio Briatore's brain. But one thing is for sure, James Vowles would not let Franco Colapinto go if it was just for some potential third seat at Alpine. That was not going to happen. He's going to send him off with something proper.
Yeah, I think that everybody is thinking Colapinto in after 5 or 6 races, and it's a really weird. When those reports were coming through that he only had a contract for 5 or 6 races. I know Christina did a TikTok saying that that's not quite true. He had a year contract, and then with clauses. So you can have performance clauses, but then you can, like Matt, you can put your thumb on the scale there. We know Ocon was running with a heavier car for a lot of 2024. And so you can just do that with Doohan. If you want his performance clause to be activated, you can just 100% make that happen. Unless you're telling me, how dare you Spanners besmirch the fine name of Flavio Briatore, who would never do such a thing. And fine, we can have that debate if you want. But I think teams do that. And I think teams can make clauses activate if they want. I think the far more likely clause is going to be a financial clause. So I reckon they were looking around going, well, we don't have anyone. There is some money from the Doohan camp. So let's go for 5 races, 6 races. If you show yourself to be good and we don't have anyone else, then we'll keep you on for 2025 and well done. You've gamed the system. But then if a Colapinto comes along, unfortunately, he's going to come in with money and a reputation and talent and sponsors. So I think Doohan's just it's just unlucky. If Colapinto hadn't burst onto the scene, he's probably all right.
Yeah, but I think the Doohan thing was it was a fundraising run.
You're right.
Like
yes,
they do glory
yes.
runs for sponsors. I think we're going to chuck you in. You've got enough money to pay for the first part of the season, and you're going to use that and get sponsors. But then Colapinto comes along, and that's a whole new market for them. And because, when was the last time we saw, is he Argentina? Am I remembering that correctly? Yeah, so we're going back quite a long way to the last Argentinian F1 driver. So he probably has loads of cash money coming his direction. And if nothing else, Flavio is all about the Benjamins, baby.
I think it's a general South American thing, right? It's just not Argentina. It's the entirety of South America that is behind Franco.
So EJ has just popped in and said, so the new paid driver seat is not for seasons anymore, but only for a set number of races. So here's what I think. I think most of these midfield seats now, you have to bring some money. So yeah, I think if he'd have come in with a season's worth of money, straight up, they'd have probably given him the drive. And I think that's what happens with the likes of Logan Sargent, Mazepin, etc. They turned up with a season's worth of money. Of course we're guessing, but if Doohan didn't have that, and like Matt says, it's easier to find the money once you're in, then in this scenario, the performance clause or the contract clause could have been, well, if you're able to impress enough to gather more sponsors, we'll keep you on. But they're under no obligation. And then now the new shiny has come along. And I think Brad's absolutely right. There's no way Doohan is going to get a fair crack now, because they're going to want to make it look like they made the right decision getting Colapinto in. All right. Where should we go? Who's got some predictions? I think we should hand over to our 2 panel here, Matt. And I assume that, Brad, we are going to get to 3. So let's go. How long have we got left? We have time. Kristian, what's your third prediction? What's your third non-rhyming prediction?
Just a short one, but I've been looking at this for quite some time. When we saw the George Russell 1.0 version, right? The PowerPoint guy. I was quite fond of him. And he was quite good in the Williams. He did some really great thing in that Williams. And we got... He did. I know the Imola, and yes. But he was fast, and he pushed the team, and they liked him. So there was Russell 2.0, which is Russell with Hamilton as his teammate, where he just basically focused on being me, number one. No. I have not seen any world champions. I'm the best.
It was smart. He focused only on Hamilton to make his
exactly.
name.
And that was not smart. That was just
for his career.
It was not smart for his career either.
Okay.
But anyway, that is just me. I think the Russell 3.0 is interesting because he's going to lead the team now. And we are all going to be like, when he's around Antonelli, what is Antonelli doing? Blah, blah, blah. We're going to be, yeah, he's right. He is the leader of the team, so he's right. But he will also be the leader of the GGPA, like the Drivers Association, right? And he's the only one vocal about Max Verstappen's going off-track stuff. So that will happen something with Russell this year, I think. I think he will step into character, both in the car and off track. And I'm looking forward to that.
Brad, hang on, me first. Was the Williams thing overcooked? Because I don't think, look, poor Robert Kubica there was in there. He had to have bits of the car, of the cockpit, cut out so that his hand position would fit through it. That was clearly not a guy in his prime at 100%. So do we really know what Russell did at Williams? I mean, he had chances up at the front. Was it not Portimao? Was it Imola, in fact, where under a safety car he ended up just spinning under the safety car?
We're not talking about that.
We're not. Okay. Does that not suit the narrative?
I can't hear anything right now.
And the Mercedes partnership is so weird because he was absolutely hyper focused on beating Hamilton, which personally I think that was smart, because he can always point and say, look how competitive I was against Hamilton, even if the strategy we ran wasn't the best strategy in the end. Brad, I'll get your take.
So I think you can judge him at the Williams stint as much as you can judge any driver at any team. And I know we look at drivers at Williams, and we've had this, like you've mentioned this many times before, with Sirotkin and Stroll when they were at Williams, and you say, yeah, okay, they're at the back, but maybe that car could have been further forward with different drivers. I think we now know Russell's level, and I think he's demonstrated he's actually very good. So we can probably assume that Williams was in the correct position for
certainly on the grid,
the car's ability. Yeah. So I think his performances, especially considering he was relatively new driver at that point, I think they're genuine. And I think the Imola thing is just an unfortunate blip. Obviously the Imola Bottas accident as well, that was the other thing that happened at Imola. So two incidents of that same track on different years, but they're kind of outliers. We saw the moment George Russell jumped in that championship winning Mercedes, he should have won the race at Bahrain. So yeah, I rate George really, really highly, and I think Lewis probably does as well after the last couple of years. So
definitely a hothead though, definitely heart on his sleeve. And so if Yuki had done some of the stuff that Russell had done, imagine if Tsunoda had got out of his car and gone and whipped Bottas around the head. He wouldn't have got away with that. Russell's been pretty much, he got away with that completely. But, he wears his heart on his sleeve. I think you're right, Kristian. I think he's going to be on the radio gently going on about, what is Antonelli doing here? Are we not racing as a team? Like, what's he up to? This isn't smart. He's going to be doing all of that.
As a fellow Brit, you would appreciate the crikey word, right?
I'm a global citizen, but yeah, I get you.
So when you say crikey, if you can, is there an American word for crikey?
Blimey.
Not one we can
the
say
Australian
on the
one
air.
is like blimey, but yeah.
Yeah, blimey, yeah.
I don't think I've heard people say crikey in a pub ever. I don't think I've ever heard that come up.
Can we agree it's a kind of a posh way of saying bloody hell or whatever?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I think I think George Russell is, he's not like the rest of the drivers. He's sort of his own kind of character, and I like that. Even if I don't always approve of the way he go about things and what he says and stuff, but I just like him standing up for who he is and what he's doing. And I'm looking forward to this year in Mercedes, and I truly hope the Mercedes car is going to do some great things for the team. It will be fun looking at him and Kimi Antonelli. I think that could be a great watch this year.
I think I said it a few shows back, but if Russell stops trying to be in with the kids, because he's never really fit into that Albon Norris type, we're the king of the memes jokey stuff. If he just settles into being the grumpy older driver that we know he's going to end up being, he's going to be a force to reckon with Formula One. Matt, I think you were taking some issue with Kristian saying that Mercedes are going to be strong there with that lineup.
I think Mercedes is going to continue to be a very circuit and temperature specific team, because I don't think they had the facilities to really solve all their problems in the way they need to be solved. So I agree. And it's actually good news for Russell fans, I believe, because there's always well, I'm taking on the new parts. I'm doing the testing. I'm taking on the burden so that we can protect the rookie. And that's always a very good narrative if you are not doing as well, relatively speaking, as people think you should be doing.
Can I sneak in a quick tech one before Brad finishes us off then?
Ooh,
okay. Here's a tech one. I predict that we're going to see more of the technical directives this year, where they go, such and such a team is being investigated for, like the mini DRS, asymmetric braking, the thing where Red Bull...
Water in the tires.
Water in the tires. Who was that meant to be? Was that meant to be McLaren?
McLaren, I think.
McLaren,
Yeah.
but it was Red Bull had done it before, and that's why they knew it
That's
worked.
how they knew. That's how they knew how to do it. And the ridiculous Red Bull thing with the being able to adjust the bib height. But they were caught red-handed there. I saw the demo they did with Ted Kravitz, and he was, it's far too complicated. And as somebody who's been frontline spannering, you go that nobody is using those extensions in the configuration they did. And fully watch the video back. They fully gave away how much they don't need the extensions because they loosened it with the triple extension. But then to make the actual adjustment, he just sticks his hand in. He sticks his hand in with a different tool all the way down. Oh, so you didn't need the extension. Oh, so you can just do it blind real quick with your hand in there. So I think, though, Matt, that this is going to be the year of the technical directives. Teams are going to be shopping each other left, right, and center.
Yeah, I would agree with that. As they are out of time and money to chase developments they see other people doing, they will absolutely, and it is a normal and ordinary course of events. Well, if I can't afford to make it, then let's get it thrown out because it'll mess up my opponents even more so. So yeah, no, I'm looking forward to the revelations to come about who's been up to what and who thinks someone else is doing that dodgy thing that they shouldn't be allowed to. And of course, with the FIA in charge, it'll make it even more enjoyable, I think.
Oh man, it's gonna be every parent's nightmare. Mom, Red Bull's done the thing again. And it's gonna be that all season. Okay, I have a feeling that we're not gonna get out of here without a Christian Pedersen poem, but we'll end on that if there's one in the bag. But Brad, have you got a final 2025 prediction? What is it, and who did you steal it from?
Yeah, so this one's actually mine, which is why it's the least juicy of all of them. And like I said earlier, I really didn't think you'd get to this. So this was a bit of an afterthought, but let's just go with it because it kind of baits you slightly. I think Hadjar will unexpectedly win the pace battle in RB against Tsunoda. So I think Hadjar, who nobody really fancies that much, he's not been spoken about that much. He kind of was announced and slotted in as RB driver alongside Tsunoda just because he was the next one, but not because anyone thought he was particularly stunning in Formula 2. He did really well, but I don't think he was on everyone's lips in the same way that someone like a Colapinto was, even though he wasn't out there winning Formula 2. So I think Hadjar's going to beat Tsunoda, and then you'll just have to suck that up for the season.
Sad.
And
Can I not have some joy? I've put up with Perez and Tsunoda getting overlooked, Perez getting thumped, Hamilton losing out over the season to Russell, I think. Can't I have any nice things, Kristian? Can I have one thing?
Did you see that one thing from the F2 in Monaco where someone was going slow in the tunnel and a car was approaching and he just that was Isaac Hadjar. And I mean, we have to take off our hat for that because that was probably the fastest reaction I've ever seen a racing driver have. So hats off to him. And also maybe a podium for Hulkenberg. Is it going to happen in 25? I don't know.
It can't. I've long maintained that Nico Hulkenberg made a deal with the devil. You can be a handsome racing driver for as long as you want, but you will never score a podium. But Matt,
But maybe if his jawline is just like declining, and then he gets a podium.
Oh, so the uglier he gets, the more chance.
Yeah, exactly.
It could happen. It could happen. Matt, you had an on-topic comment.
I did. I wanted to ask Brad for a clarification. When you say pace, are we talking single lap pace or are we talking race pace?
Yeah, whatever. I think when Lawson came in, he immediately, whatever Spanner says about, in 2024, if you look over enough results.
Just 14-0 to qualify.
When Lawson came in last minute as a super sub in place of Ricciardo, he just immediately was in front of Tsunoda. And I think that then forced Tsunoda to actually up his game a bit. Hadjar could do the same. Tsunoda's also probably not all out trying to impress Red Bull anymore because he knows they're just not interested in him. So obviously he's going to want good results. He's going to want to be in the shop window for another seat. I don't know where he could potentially go. People say Aston Martin with Honda, but is there really a space there for him if Verstappen goes there, like Kristian was saying? So I just think Hadjar has a chance to do well here.
Yeah, I believe you.
But I have to say though, this isn't my. I'm not really strong in the belief that this is going to happen. I just had to have a third one, really.
No, you've staked your whole reputation on it. No,
if it happens though, I'm going to remind you that I said it.
Of course, yeah, no, just like a pure fortune teller. Yeah, ignore the misses and highlight the hits. It could happen, of course. So the thing that's always interesting with your favorite F1 driver is you have very few data points comparing them against their teammates. And then there's always mitigating circumstances in that. So it's really, really difficult to tease apart. I don't think you can dismiss someone's record against their teammates. I think it's the only tool we have. So it's fair to use it. At the moment, you'd say Tsunoda is looking pretty good. So, Dispatch, De Vries, Ricciardo. Lawson got 2 points, by the way, for all of Brad's. Oh, yeah, he did really well and came up against him. 2 points in that stint last season. So he didn't exactly set the world on fire. Tsunoda has beaten what's been put in front of him. What's been put in front of him has been De Vries, who seemed like he was making too many mistakes. He was in the wall. And then you had Ricciardo right at the end of his career, probably on a moral low as well. And then a Lawson who had literally just been parachuted in at the end of the season. You would be expected to beat somebody with the experience that Tsunoda had there. So yeah, I think it's fair to say we don't know. It's entirely possible that someone comes in and is faster than Tsunoda, but I'll predict the other way. I think Tsunoda will dispatch another one, making Red Bull's decision look foolish, and Lawson will also get soundly thumped at Red Bull by Verstappen as well. All of that will suit my Tsunoda narrative. That's what I'm going to stick to. So I think we've come to the end of the prediction show. We've got a few more set piece things coming up for you. We are going to do some mini shows in the week and try and have a Sunday live stream for you all the way up until testing. So go and check out Brad Philpott's video. And it is the best. The onboard shots are the best karting onboard shots you will see. And it's a well put together video with a good story through the championship. Go and follow him by searching for Bradley Philpott on all social media platforms. Go and follow Matt. In fact, you can follow Matt in real life because you are going to be performing somewhere, blowing your own trumpet.
I'm going to be playing with the New York City Ska Orchestra in legitimate New York City, as you can probably hear in the background there, at Joe's Pub, February 1st. 2 sets, 7 and 9 o'clock. It's a pretty amazing place to hear music and a pretty great place to get dinner too.
Well, there you go. And Kristian, what about that music? Have you launched your music career again?
Yeah, I'm going to give you your Sergio Paris poem now because actually I have to do a poem for Spanish and I didn't do it and it was like 30 minutes before, so I just wrote down something quick. Your expectations has to be low.
That's the secret to life. A happy life is low expectations. Sergio, you made me move to Bordeaux. It's been like watching Renault Alpine. I like it here because wine, Bordeaux wine. That is the level. Okay, there's 3. So the next one. It seems Franco is the new black, though Spanish gives him constant flack. Maybe that's because he's always had your back, or was he looking at your butt crack? Mr. Paris, like you, we all do. Off track or flat out through a rouge.
Your smile, your butt, your hairdo. Ending this poem with a rhyme by saying poo. And you see, that is the level of, that is how my brain works 30 minutes before. So I'm sorry about that.
No, I think that's a really good way to end Kristian's Missed Apex podcast career. Yeah, I think that's a really good note to go out on. But when Kristian has got some music and when the poetry book is launched, we will put links to that in the show notes, of course.
I made a Blue Sky account only for this show.
Oh, go for it.
I think it's, I told you earlier, Matt, it's KREDEP, or I'm just called KPED there.
It's KREDEP.BSKY.social, and it'll be in the
so easy to remember.
Not kpod.poo.poetry@Blue Sky Social, no?
Could be.
Do follow me, of course. I'm the best one. Posting more on Instagram. Go and check out my silly round face over there by searching for Spanners Ready. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter. I'm just double posting on both of them at the moment. And I'm still enjoying both platforms. And you can also support us on Patreon. I've been so pleased. The amount of new people that are continuing to sign on during the off season has been incredible. So thank you to everyone who signed up and everyone who hasn't unsubscribed over the winter. Patreon.com/MissedApex. We've kept it at $5 a month, and you can get an ad-free RSS feed that you put in your podcast app. The extra stupid content me and Matt do from time to time. And of course, come and join our Patreon Discord community as well. Until we see you next, work hard, be kind, and have fun. This was Missed Apex Podcast.